The guest book at the Stanley Hotel holds thousands of names. Most entries look normal: names, dates, room numbers. But some notes stand out. Room 217, piano music at 3 a.m. Heard children laughing in empty hallway. Woman in old dress on 4th floor. The hotel staff learn not to ask too many questions about these comments. Some guests like to keep their strange experiences private, but the hotel staff cannot ignore what keeps happening. The same rooms, the same weird sounds, the same ghosts that different people see. These guests never talk to each other. They never read the old guest books. Many never even knew the hotel was supposed to be haunted before they arrived. The Stanley Hotel sits high up in the mountains. It is 7,500 feet above sea level in Estes Park, Colorado. The big white building looks like an old mansion. It stands out against the rocky peaks of the mountains around it. For over 100 years, guests have come here to get away from busy city life. Many found exactly what they wanted. Others found something they never expected. The hotel's story starts with a man named Freeland Oscar Stanley. He was an inventor from Massachusetts. In the early 1900s, he changed how Americans traveled. Stanley and his twin brother Francis made cars powered by steam. These cars could go over 100 miles per hour. Their Stanley steamer set a world speed record in 1906. This made Freeland Stanley rich and famous. But success had a price. By 1903, Stanley got very sick with tuberculosis. His lungs were badly damaged. Doctors said he might only have months to live. They told him to find clean air and a dry place to live. Stanley traveled west to Colorado. The mountain air helped him get better. Within a year, his health improved a lot. Stanley loved the Estes Park area. He bought 160 acres of land on a hill. The land looked down over the whole valley. He started building a grand hotel in 1907. The building would be both a fancy resort and a showcase for new technology. Stanley put in his own power plant. He installed the first electric lights in the area. He even added a telephone system. Each room could call the front desk. The Stanley Hotel opened on the 4th of July, 1909. The 4-story building had 142 guest rooms. Each room had handmade furniture and expensive rugs. A grand ballroom took up most of the ground floor. The dining room had huge windows with views of the mountains. Stanley also built a separate concert hall. Guests could watch musical shows and attend parties. Rich people from all over America came to stay. President Theodore Roosevelt stayed there. The famous composer John Philip Sousa visited. Members of the wealthy Vanderbilt family came too. The guest list looked like a list of the most important people in America. Stanley lived in the hotel during summer months. He would personally greet guests. He made sure everyone felt comfortable. But even in those early years, strange things started happening. Hotel maids would find rooms that were clean and locked the night before. The next morning, these rooms would be completely messy. Guests complained about piano music from the ballroom at night. Front desk workers would check the ballroom. They always found it empty. The piano bench was pushed neatly under the keyboard. Most reports came from the 4th floor. This floor had many of the smaller guest rooms. Workers on late shifts heard footsteps in the halls above them. They heard doors opening and closing. When they went to check, the hallways were always empty. All the doors were locked tight. Freeland Stanley did not believe these reports. He thought people had too much imagination. The hotel was in a lonely place, he said. Mountain winds could make strange sounds. The wooden building naturally creaked and settled. This happened especially when temperatures changed. He told his staff to tell guests there were normal reasons for anything they might hear or see. Stanley's explanations might have worked if the strange things stayed small and rare. Instead, they got worse. In summer 1912, a woman named Margaret Wilson checked into room 217. Wilson was married to a rich businessman from Denver. She came to the Stanley for a 2-week rest. Her doctor had told her she needed it. She stayed in the room alone, while her husband stayed in Denver for work. On her 3rd night, Wilson woke up to sounds in her room. Someone was moving around. She thought it was a hotel maid who came in by mistake. She turned on the electric light. The room was empty. The next morning, she told the front desk. They said sorry. They promised housekeeping would not bother her again. The next night, Wilson heard the same sounds again. This time, she stayed still and listened carefully. She could hear someone walking across the room. They were opening dresser drawers. They were moving things on the writing desk. The sounds went on for almost an hour. Then they stopped, suddenly. In the morning, Wilson made a strange discovery. Someone had unpacked her belongings from her suitcases. Everything was arranged in the dresser and closet. The items were folded and organized better than she had packed them. Wilson told the hotel manager what happened. He suggested maybe she unpacked the items herself. Maybe she forgot because of travel stress. Wilson said no. She insisted she left everything in her suitcases. She had no memory of unpacking anything. The manager offered to move her to a different room. Wilson said no. She was curious about what might happen next. On her fifth night, Wilson decided to pretend to sleep. She would stay alert and watch. She lay still with her eyes closed. She heard the familiar footsteps begin. This time, she slowly opened her eyes. She saw a woman in a dark, old-fashioned dress. The figure stood near the window. She looked solid and real. She was not see-through like ghosts in stories. The woman's back was turned. She seemed to be looking out at the mountains. Wilson watched for several minutes. She was afraid to move or speak. The woman turned toward the bed. Wilson could see her face clearly. Moonlight came through the window and lit up the room. The woman looked middle-aged. Her gray hair was pulled back. She had kind eyes that looked sad, not scary. The woman looked right at Wilson. She nodded slightly. It was like she was saying hello, then she simply disappeared. Wilson stayed at the hotel for the rest of her planned visit. The woman appeared 2 more times. Both times she did the same thing. She organized Wilson's belongings. Wilson started leaving items messy on purpose. She wanted to see if the ghost would fix them. Every morning, she woke up to find everything neatly arranged. When Wilson checked out, she wrote down everything that happened. She gave the report to the hotel manager. She asked him to keep it secret. She did not want people to know she claimed to see ghosts. The manager locked her report in his office safe. It stayed there for many years. Room 217 kept having strange reports. Guests complained about luggage being unpacked without permission. Clothes were folded and put away. Personal items were moved to different places. The housekeeping staff hated cleaning room 217. They often found their carefully arranged sheets and towels put in different patterns. In 1915, a traveling salesman named Robert Hayes checked into room 217. Hayes would only stay 1 night. He was a practical man. He had no patience for ghost stories. He heard rumors that the Stanley Hotel was haunted, but he thought they were just publicity tricks to bring in tourists. Hayes went to his room around 10 p.m. after dinner. Sometime after midnight, a sound woke him up. Someone was typing on a typewriter. The sound came from the writing desk near the window. Hayes turned on the light. The desk was empty. There was no typewriter in the room. The typing sound started again as soon as Hayes turned off the light. He lay in bed and listened. He heard the steady rhythm of keys being hit. He heard the bell ring when the carriage returned. The typing went on for about 2 hours. Then it stopped. In the morning, Hayes found something strange. A piece of hotel paper was on the writing desk. Someone had typed 1 line on it, "Welcome to the Stanley Hotel." Hayes kept the paper as a souvenir. He never talked about his experience in public, but he did write about it in a letter to his wife. He called it "The Strangest Night of My Life." The letter stayed in the family for years. Later, someone gave it to a Colorado Historical Society. The 4th floor had the most reports. But other parts of the hotel also became known for strange activity. The ballroom was famous for ghost piano music. It would play in the early morning hours. The dining room had a table near the windows. Guests reported seeing a well-dressed man reading a newspaper, but the figure would disappear when people got close. The hotel's pool room was in the basement. Many people reported hearing the sound of pool balls hitting each other. They heard balls rolling across the tables. Staff members who checked on these sounds always found the room empty. All the balls were properly set up on their tables. By the 1920s, the Stanley Hotel had a reputation all over Colorado. People knew it as a place where strange things happened. Some guests came hoping to see something supernatural. Others had no idea about the hotel's reputation. The reports kept coming no matter what guests expected or believed. Freeland Stanley died in 1940, but his presence at the hotel seemed to continue. Staff members saw an old man in a dark suit walking through the lobby and halls. They usually saw him in the evening. The figure was always far away. He would disappear when people got closer. Guests sometimes met a friendly older man who would give directions or suggest local attractions, but no one like that was ever on the staff list. The hotel got national attention in 1974. Author Stephen King stayed there with his wife Tabitha. King was working on a novel about a haunted hotel, but he was having trouble with the story. He decided to visit the Stanley Hotel to research what an isolated mountain resort felt like. King and his wife checked into room 217 in late September. The hotel was almost empty. It was getting ready to close for winter. They were among the last guests of the season. Most of the staff had already been let go. The hotel felt abandoned and lonely. This was exactly the atmosphere King needed for inspiration. On their first night, King had very vivid dreams. He later said the dreams were unusually clear and detailed. He dreamed about the hotel's history. He saw previous guests and staff members from decades past. He dreamed about events that happened in the building long before he arrived. The dreams felt more like real memories than products of his imagination. King also heard sounds from other parts of the hotel all night long. Footsteps in the hallways, doors opening and closing, what sounded like voices having conversations in distant rooms. When he went to investigate, he found the hallways empty. All guest room doors were locked. The experience at the Stanley Hotel gave King the inspiration he needed. He finished his novel, The Shining. King's fictional Overlook Hotel was based on several different places, but many of the supernatural elements in the book came directly from his experiences at the Stanley Hotel. The hotel embraced this connection. They have used it in their marketing ever since. King's novel became a movie directed by Stanley Kubrick in 1980, but Kubrick chose to film at a different hotel in Oregon. He did not use the Stanley Hotel. This disappointed the hotel's management. They hoped the movie would bring more tourists to their location. In the 1990s, King wrote and produced a TV miniseries version of The Shining. This version was filmed at the Stanley Hotel. The production brought new attention to the hotel's haunted reputation. It made the hotel a destination for horror fans and people interested in the paranormal. Today's guests continue to report experiences like those from the hotel's early years. Room 217 remains the most active location. Visitors report the sound of typing. They experience phantom housekeeping services. They see the woman in the old-fashioned dress. The fourth floor generates reports of children's laughter. People hear running footsteps and balls bouncing in the halls. The hotel's current management takes a balanced approach to these reports. They do not encourage or discourage guests from talking about their experiences. The staff gets training on how to respond professionally to paranormal reports. They do not dismiss the reports, but they do not make them seem more dramatic either. Guest services can provide information about the hotel's history to visitors who ask, but they do not market themselves mainly as a haunted destination. Professional ghost investigators have studied the Stanley Hotel extensively. Teams use special equipment to detect electromagnetic fields. They use infrared cameras and digital audio recorders. They have documented many strange things that they cannot explain through normal means. Temperature changes, electromagnetic disturbances, and unexplained audio recordings have been captured. These happen in the same places where guests have reported supernatural encounters for over a century. Skeptics argue that the hotel's reputation creates expectations that influence what guests think they see. The power of suggestion combines with the building's age and isolated location. This could account for many of the reported experiences. The hotel's wooden construction naturally creaks and settles as temperatures change. This could create sounds that guests might interpret as footsteps or other human activity. However, this explanation has problems. It struggles to account for how consistent the reports are across different time periods. People from different cultural backgrounds report similar things. Many witnesses had no awareness of the hotel's haunted reputation before they arrived. Yet they reported experiences that matched documented patterns going back decades. The hotel's staff members work there regularly. They are familiar with the building's normal sounds and quirks. They continue to report incidents they cannot explain. These employees have no financial reason to make up stories. Many are reluctant to discuss their experiences in public. Physical evidence remains limited but interesting. Photographs taken throughout the hotel sometimes show unexplained figures or strange light patterns. These could potentially be explained by camera problems or photographic artifacts. Audio recordings have captured voices and sounds that do not match any known source. But the quality of these recordings makes analysis difficult. The most compelling aspect of the Stanley Hotel's haunted reputation may be how long it has lasted. For over a century, through changing ownership, management, and cultural attitudes, the reports continue. The same locations keep generating similar reports no matter who is staying there or working there. The experiences described by guests in 1912 are very similar to those reported by visitors today. Whether these phenomena represent genuine supernatural activity remains an open question. It could be psychological suggestion. It could be some combination of factors. What cannot be disputed is that thousands of people have reported unusual experiences at the Stanley Hotel. These reports continue with remarkable consistency. During the hotel's long history, several other notable incidents have been documented. In 1923, a family from Chicago stayed in a suite on the third floor. The parents, William and Dorothy Miller, brought their 2 young children for a summer vacation. On their second night, both children complained about other kids running up and down the hallway outside their room. The parents checked several times but found the hallway empty. The hotel manager confirmed that no other families with children were staying on that floor. The children's complaints continued every night of their stay. They described hearing laughter, whispered conversations, and what sounded like a ball being bounced against the walls. The Miller family cut their vacation short by 3 days. In a letter to relatives, Dorothy Miller wrote that the children were too frightened to sleep. She mentioned feeling watched whenever she walked through the third-floor hallways. In 1931, during the Great Depression, the hotel struggled financially. Many rooms sat empty for weeks at a time. The reduced staff reported increased paranormal activity during this period. Night janitor Frank Morrison documented his experiences in a personal diary that was discovered decades later in the hotel's archives. Morrison wrote about seeing lights in guest rooms that were supposed to be empty. When he investigated with his master key, he found the rooms dark and unoccupied. But as soon as he left, the lights would appear again. Morrison also described hearing what sounded like a party in the ballroom late one night. When he went to investigate, he heard music, laughter, and the sound of dancing feet on the wooden floor. But when he opened the ballroom doors, the room was dark and silent. The most disturbing entry in Morrison's diary described an encounter in the hotel's basement. While checking the boiler room, he saw a man in work clothes examining the heating equipment. Morrison called out a greeting, assuming it was a maintenance worker he had not met. The figure looked up, and Morrison could see that half of his face appeared burned or scarred. The man smiled and nodded, then walked through a solid stone wall and disappeared. Morrison quit his job the next day. His diary entry for that date simply read, "Some places are not meant for the living." During World War II, the hotel served as a retreat for military officers recovering from combat stress. Several doctors reported that patients seemed more agitated when staying on the fourth floor. Requests for room changes to lower floors became so frequent that the medical staff eventually stopped assigning patients to that area of the hotel. Dr. James Patterson, a psychiatrist treating combat veterans, noted in his records that patients on the fourth floor frequently complained about sleep disturbances. They reported nightmares that seemed unusually vivid and realistic. Many described dreams about previous guests at the hotel, people they had never met or heard about. Some patients woke up with detailed knowledge about events that had happened at the hotel years before their arrival. Dr. Patterson initially attributed these reports to the patient's existing psychological trauma, but he became concerned when he started having similar experiences. During his own stays at the hotel, he had dreams about the building's history that later proved to be accurate when he researched historical records. In the 1950s, as the hotel began to modernize its facilities, construction workers reported numerous strange incidents. Electrician Tony Ricci was rewiring rooms on the fourth floor when he began hearing voices in the walls. At first, he thought the sounds came from guests in adjacent rooms, but when he checked, those rooms were empty. The voices seemed to be having conversations about daily activities. Ricci heard discussions about weather, meals, and travel plans, but the language and references seemed old-fashioned. People talked about taking the train instead of driving. Women discussed clothing styles that had been out of fashion for decades. Ricci mentioned these experiences to other workers. Several confirmed they had heard similar things. Plumber Mike Kowalski reported hearing water running in pipes that had been disconnected. Carpenter Dave Sullivan found tools moved to different locations overnight, always arranged more neatly than he had left them. The construction foreman, Bob Jenkins, initially dismissed these reports as the result of workers' imaginations, but he changed his mind after his own experience in room 217. Jenkins was installing new light fixtures when he heard typing sounds from across the room. He looked up to see a translucent figure of a woman sitting at the writing desk. She appeared to be writing a letter, though Jenkins could see through her to the wall behind. Jenkins watched for several minutes, afraid to move or speak. The woman finished writing, folded the paper, and placed it in an envelope. She looked up at Jenkins and smiled kindly before fading away. When Jenkins examined the desk, he found it empty, but he noticed a faint scent of old-fashioned perfume lingering in the air. These construction-related incidents established patterns that continue to this day. Workers still report tools being moved overnight. Electrical systems sometimes malfunction in ways that cannot be explained by normal wear or technical problems. New employees often ask about sounds they hear in empty parts of the building. In 1963, the hotel hosted a convention of insurance salesmen from across the western United States. More than 50 men attended the three-day event. On the final night, several attendees gathered in the hotel bar to share stories about their experiences during the convention. The conversation eventually turned to the hotel's reputation for being haunted. Most of the men were skeptical about ghost stories, but as they compared notes, they discovered that many had experienced similar incidents during their stay. At least 15 men reported hearing children's voices in empty hallways. 8 mentioned seeing a woman in old-fashioned dress walking through the lobby late at night. 5 described waking up to find their personal belongings rearranged in their rooms. What made these reports particularly interesting was that the men had not discussed their experiences with each other before that final evening. Each thought he was the only one having strange encounters. The discovery that so many others had similar experiences made a strong impression on the entire group. One attendee, insurance executive Harold Davidson from Phoenix, Arizona, documented the evening's conversations in a letter to his wife. He wrote that the sheer number of similar reports convinced him that something unusual was happening at the hotel. Davidson had arrived as a complete skeptic, but left as a believer in the hotel's supernatural activity. The 1970s brought increased interest in paranormal phenomena across America. The Stanley Hotel began attracting visitors specifically interested in ghost hunting and supernatural experiences. The hotel management initially tried to downplay these aspects, preferring to focus on their reputation as a luxury mountain resort. But the paranormal tourists proved to be a significant source of revenue, especially during the slower winter months. The hotel began offering special packages for groups interested in exploring the building's haunted reputation. These tours were conducted by longtime staff members who could share decades of accumulated stories and experiences. One of the most popular tour guides was Elena Rodriguez, who had worked as a housekeeper at the hotel since 1955. Rodriguez had personally experienced dozens of paranormal incidents during her career. She had seen the woman in Victorian dress more than 20 times, always in room 217 or the fourth-floor hallway. Rodriguez also reported regular encounters with what she believed to be the ghost of Freeland Stanley himself. She described seeing an elderly man in an expensive suit walking through the hotel's public areas. The figure always appeared perfectly solid and normal until Rodriguez tried to approach him, then he would simply vanish. According to Rodriguez, the ghost of Freeland Stanley seemed particularly interested in ensuring that guests were comfortable and happy. She witnessed the figure straightening crooked pictures, adjusting curtains, and even replacing burned-out light bulbs in chandeliers. Rodriguez believed that Stanley's spirit continued to take pride in his hotel's appearance and reputation. The ghost tours led by Rodriguez became legendary among paranormal enthusiasts. Her matter-of-fact approach to supernatural encounters made her stories more believable than dramatic retellings. Rodriguez never embellished or exaggerated her experiences. She simply reported what she had seen and heard during her decades of service at the hotel. In 1978, a group of parapsychology researchers from the University of Colorado spent a week at the Stanley Hotel conducting formal investigations. The team was led by Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who had previously studied allegedly haunted locations across the United States. Dr. Mitchell's team used scientific equipment to document any unusual phenomena they could detect. The researchers set up electromagnetic field detectors throughout the hotel, with particular focus on room 217 and the fourth floor. They also used infrared cameras, digital thermometers, and sensitive audio recording equipment. Team members took shifts monitoring the equipment around the clock. During their week-long investigation, Dr. Mitchell's team recorded numerous anomalies that they could not explain through conventional means. Electromagnetic field readings showed significant fluctuations in areas where guests frequently reported supernatural encounters. Temperature measurements revealed sudden drops of 10 to 15 degrees in specific locations, with no apparent cause. The most intriguing evidence came from their audio recordings. On multiple occasions, the team captured voices speaking in what sounded like normal conversation. But when they investigated the sources of these voices, they found no people in the areas where the recordings were made. Some of the captured voices used language and expressions that seemed characteristic of earlier time periods. Dr. Mitchell's final report acknowledged that the team could not provide conventional explanations for many of their recorded observations. While she stopped short of claiming that the hotel was definitely haunted, she concluded that the Stanley Hotel presented significant anomalous phenomena worthy of further scientific investigation. The 1980s brought Stephen King's The Shining to international attention, dramatically increasing public interest in the Stanley Hotel. Horror fans began making pilgrimages to the hotel, hoping to experience some of the supernatural activity that had inspired King's novel. The hotel management found themselves balancing their traditional luxury resort image with growing recognition as a paranormal destination. During this period, guest reports of supernatural encounters increased significantly. Some skeptics argued that this increase resulted from heightened expectations rather than actual paranormal activity. Guests arrived expecting to see ghosts, so they interpreted normal hotel sounds and sights as supernatural phenomena. But hotel staff members noticed that many of the most compelling reports came from guests who had no prior knowledge of the hotel's haunted reputation. These visitors often seemed genuinely surprised and confused by their experiences. They would approach the front desk asking if other guests had reported similar incidents. One particularly well-documented case involved a businessman named Thomas Anderson from Seattle, Washington. Anderson booked a room at the Stanley Hotel in 1983 for a company retreat. He had chosen the hotel based solely on its mountain location and conference facilities. He had never heard of Stephen King's connection to the hotel or its reputation for paranormal activity. Anderson checked into room 401 on the 4th floor. On his first night, he was awakened by the sound of children playing in the hallway outside his room. He could hear laughter, running footsteps, and what sounded like a ball bouncing against the walls. Concerned that the noise might disturb other guests, Anderson opened his door to ask the children to play more quietly. The hallway was empty and silent. Anderson checked his watch and saw that it was 2:15 a.m. He found it unlikely that children would be playing in hotel hallways at that hour. He returned to his room, but continued to hear the sounds intermittently throughout the night. The next morning, Anderson mentioned the incident to the hotel staff. The front desk clerk informed him that no families with children were staying on the 4th floor. In fact, Anderson was the only guest in that entire section of the hotel. The clerk then explained the hotel's history of paranormal reports and suggested that Anderson might have encountered some of the hotel's permanent residents. Anderson was initially skeptical of this explanation, but over the next 2 nights of his stay, he experienced additional incidents that he could not explain. He heard typing sounds from the room next door, though that room was unoccupied. He saw lights under doors of empty rooms. On his final night, he saw a woman in old-fashioned dress walking down the hallway. When he called out to her, she turned toward him, smiled, and disappeared. Anderson left the Stanley Hotel as a converted believer in paranormal phenomena. He returned several times over the following years, always staying in room 401. He documented his experiences in detailed letters to friends and family members. These letters provided valuable first-hand accounts of supernatural encounters from a reliable witness with no prior belief in such phenomena. The 1990s television miniseries production brought renewed scientific interest to the Stanley Hotel. Researchers studying the electromagnetic properties of allegedly haunted locations found the hotel to be an excellent case study. The building's age, construction materials, and mountain location created unique environmental conditions that some theorists believed might contribute to paranormal activity. Dr. Robert Thomas, a physicist from Colorado State University, conducted extensive measurements of the hotel's electromagnetic environment. He discovered that the building's electrical systems created complex field patterns that varied significantly in different areas. Room 217 and the 4th floor showed particularly unusual readings that could not be fully explained by the building's wiring or nearby electronic equipment. Dr. Jones's research suggested that certain locations in the hotel might be more conducive to paranormal phenomena due to their unique electromagnetic properties. He theorized that these conditions might somehow facilitate interactions between dimensions or enable the manifestation of residual energy from past events. While Dr. Brown's theories remained speculative, his measurements provided scientific documentation of unusual conditions in areas where guests most frequently reported supernatural encounters. This correlation between electromagnetic anomalies and paranormal reports added credibility to claims that something genuinely unusual was happening at the Stanley Hotel. The hotel entered the 21st century with a well-established reputation as one of America's most haunted locations. Modern technology allowed for more sophisticated investigation of reported phenomena. Digital cameras, advanced audio equipment, and computerized environmental monitoring systems provided new tools for documenting supernatural activity. Professional paranormal investigation teams began visiting the hotel regularly, often broadcasting their investigations live on television or streaming platforms. These shows brought additional publicity to the hotel while providing extensive documentation of ongoing paranormal activity. Despite decades of investigation and thousands of reported encounters, the Stanley Hotel's supernatural residents remain as active as ever. Guest reports continue with the same consistency that has characterized the hotel's haunted reputation for over a century. The same locations generate similar experiences. The same apparitions appear to visitors who have no knowledge of previous sightings. Room 217 continues to be the hotel's most active paranormal location. Guests still report the sound of typing, phantom housekeeping services, and encounters with the helpful woman in Victorian dress. The fourth floor remains known for children's laughter, running footsteps, and playful supernatural activity. The ballroom still hosts phantom piano concerts in the early morning hours. Whether these phenomena represent genuine communication with spirits from the past, psychological suggestion, or unknown natural processes remains an open question. What cannot be disputed is that the Stanley Hotel has provided consistent paranormal experiences to thousands of visitors over more than a century. The hotel continues to operate as both a luxury mountain resort and a destination for those seeking encounters with the unexplained. Guests arrive with varying expectations and beliefs. Some leave with nothing more than pleasant memories of mountain scenery and comfortable accommodations. Others depart with experiences that challenge their understanding of reality itself. The guest registry still accumulates new entries each day. Among the routine acknowledgements of arrival and departure are those other notes that hint at encounters beyond normal experience. The hotel staff continues to file these away with professional discretion, neither encouraging nor discouraging, simply maintaining their record of what guests choose to report. After more than a century, the Stanley Hotel maintains its secrets as carefully as it maintains its reputation for hospitality. The building stands as a testament to both early 20th century craftsmanship and the enduring mystery of human experience. Whether its supernatural reputation reflects genuine paranormal activity or the power of suggestion and expectation may never be fully resolved. What remains certain is that some places accumulate stories the way others accumulate history. The Stanley Hotel has been collecting both for a very long time. The mountain winds still whistle through the corridors at night. The wooden floors still creak under footsteps both seen and unseen. And somewhere in room 217, the sound of typing continues to echo through the darkness, composing messages that only the walls remember. For those brave enough to listen, the Stanley Hotel still has stories to tell. Whether those stories come from the living or the dead remains for each visitor to decide. If you've had your own unexplainable experiences at historic locations, we'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales of the unexplained, and remember to turn on notifications so you never miss an episode.